Hello and welcome to Cooking Natural with Master Chef Tim Fava. How am I a Master Chef? Well, in 1975, I was working in a deli and I liked food. And I said, let me go to chef school and see what happens. In 1977, when I graduated chef school, I was number 3 in the class out of 80. So, and they noticed I did very imaginative ways of making food. And from then on, I've been working in food service, corporate food service, private food service, and on my own food service. One of the things not related to food, but kind of, is that back in '98, I worked in a cafeteria in Queens, where the building was well over 100 years old, and the gas lines were the same age, and they were broken, and we were shooting flames out of the floor, and everyone said, no, you can't do anything about it until it lit one of my waitresses on fire. I told the gas company, they shut the restaurant down, and I was blacklisted for a few years. So I went on to other things. I was cooking on the side, doing corporate cooking or personal cooking, and learning how to make food for the individual family. Which brings me to my next subject. Bolt's Card Services, BCS. BCS is a full-functioning, full-service card processing and settlement service for businesses. And in doing so, I'm able to go to customers, or they come to me actually, and look at what they've been doing and seeing where we can make improvements where it doesn't cost them as much money as it was. And one of those areas is the actual settlement of those credit card purchases. And we find out that all is not the same in Rome. You have companies that charge more because they can. And then you have companies that charge more and they don't tell anyone they're charging more. They change what is known as the interchange of what the banks tell them it costs to convert those cards and what they want to charge more so they make more money. My job as the owner of Bolt's Card Services is to ensure that everybody gets a fair deal. And I've been doing it since 2007. I've been pretty good at it. So this is what it is. So next, we're going to have what I'm going to make today. Today, I'm going to make sourdough bread made with fresh grain and with coconut butter and coconut milk, and no butter at all, because butter is only 89% fat, and coconut cream is 97% fat. So you want that fat that's in the coconut cream to add liveliness and light to the sourdough. So what grain am I using? I hear the question. The grain I'm using is Pelosi Farms from Washington State. I buy it directly from them, And their grain is so fresh when it gets to me. To make my sourdough, I make my sourdough fresh, and I keep it in the refrigerator. The sourdough little monster that I keep in the refrigerator that I refresh is about 9 years old. And how you do that is you take some freshly milled flour, or freshly milled grain into flour, and you put it into a jar. I use a 6-ounce jar. So I put 3 ounces of the grain into the jar, a tablespoon of raw honey, and enough water to cover it and make it into a thick dough. I put it on the counter, 80 degrees or whatever. Because the grain is so freshly picked, it takes less than 3 hours for that grain to start multiplying and getting bubbles in it. Once it gets some bubbles in the grain, I take it, I put the cover on, and I put it in the refrigerator. And I use it in about 2 weeks. Part of it. And the reason why I say part of it is because when you're making sourdough bread, you only take about half of what you have in the jar. So I take 3 ounces out, and I mix that with the grain, the flour now. And the rest of it, I replace. I put a little more honey in, a little more water, and I put it back in the refrigerator. I've been doing that for 9 years with the same jar. Well, I clean the jar out, but the same little monster that I keep in the refrigerator. And that's how you make sourdough starter. Anyway, back to what we're doing here. So now I take the Pelosi grain and I put it into the food mill, and I tried many ways of showing you guys how the food mill works, but no matter what I did, it drowned me out. It just plain old drowned me out with the sound. So you just get me talking through this. So the grain mill is now grinding the grain to the consistency I want. I don't want powder like you get in the store. I want something with a little bit of meat to it so that when it absorbs the water, it gives me texture. And the next video is when that grinding action is over, it going into the hopper, and I take that and I show you that it's now flour. And then as we move on from me showing you it's flour, we're going to the next video, which is I'm adding water to the flour that I have. Stop right there. I keep saying flour. It's not flour. Flour is something that looks like talcum powder. This is not flour that way. This is fresh grain flour, which means you can see that there are pieces of wheat. Not big pieces, but they're pieces of wheat. And that gives you your texture that you're biting into something that's real and is honest. So what I've done is, in this frame, you see me adding liquid. 90% of the time it's coconut milk, the first one. So I have 10 ounces, 10, 12 ounces, something like that, of ground grain. I'm only adding 2 to maybe 3 ounces maximum of the coconut milk. That's the liquidy stuff, not the fat part. And I'm mixing that in. I personally mix it in by hand because it takes just about as long to do it by hand as it does to have the machine whirl the grains around until they hydrate. You don't want to use your grain straight from ground grain to bread because you got to get the grains to hydrate. What you're hydrating is the husks that are on that grain that are like sponges. And so you're getting them hydrated, and now your grain is ready to put your main water and everything else in it. What's everything else? Well, you're going to put your 3 ounces of fresh sourdough into your 12, 14. It's now about a pound's worth of flour starter or close to it. 12, 14, it's about 14, 16 ounces. And now you put in your 3 ounces of sourdough starter. You mix it in well. Then you put in you're gonna 4 or 5. If you want a dough that has lots of holes in it from the air, you might want to put in 6 ounces of water. Otherwise, you want to stay with like 5. This way you get a nice solid loaf. And you put that in, and then you put the mixer back on and you mix it. And that's in the next scene. You see the dough hook going into the dry mix, little ball forming. The next clip is a dough ball. That took about 4 minutes to get it going. And then once you did that, you had the ball formed, you're gonna take it out, take a look at it, and see whether or not it's what you want. You're going to stick your finger directly into that ball and see whether or not your finger sticks or your finger comes out clean when you pull it up. If it comes out clean, that's fine. If your finger sticks, yeah, you got to add some more flour because you put too much water in. But if it comes out clean but you feel gritty, then you might need a little bit more water. Experience, that's the only thing I can tell you. And then once that's done, you're going to let it sit on the side for about a half hour. And when the half hour is up, you're going to add your olive oil to this mixture. And the olive oil, you're going to work it into the dough so that it's working properly. All right. You can add too much, but we're looking at maybe 2, maybe 3 ounces of olive oil that you're going to work into this. Once that's worked in, then you're going to sit it on the side, let it sit for about a minute, and then you're going to take the dough and whichever type of pan you're going to work with. Me personally, since I'm the only one that eats my bread, what can I tell you? I cut it into, it fits, have little 5-inch loaf pans. So I cut it so that it will get to halfway on that loaf pan. And then, so I get, and when I make it, somewhere between 8 and 10 mini loaves of bread, filling it up halfway on the loaf pan. I personally put parchment paper in. My pans just don't like me anymore, and I get dough sticking to them, so I use the parchment paper. Once you're ready and everything's all set up for your pans, I put a covering, either sesame seeds or poppy seeds or everything seasoning for bagels. On the bottom, I pour another ounce of oil in there. I put the loaf in, and I make sure I score the loaf at least an inch down, so the bread has plenty of room to to move. And now we'll see what I have on the next video. See you in a bit. All right, we're on the end screen. So, what you're looking at is the bread going into the oven at 325 degrees. I put some more oil on the top of the bread. It adds a nice texture to the bread. And I baked it. I start the baking at 325 for 30 minutes. On the smaller loaves, less. And I take my thermometer, I put it in to the center of the bread. If it comes out at 190 degrees, it's perfect. I take it out, put it on its side, let the heat dissipate, and we go from there. This half of my program was brought to you by Web Vibrant America. Catch them on the internet. They are an excellent web. They do proofreading. They do book publishing. They're an all-around company. They've been around a while. Give them a buzz. Thank you very much and have a great day.